Okay, Cheryl gave me this to read to you. This week marks the 14th anniversary of Zachary's passing. Although death is sad and alters our lives greatly, we look back on the years we had. Sorry, it's in cursive and I've read it before. I'm sorry. We had and are thankful. We look at our present and see how far we've come and the beautiful blessings the Lord has brought. And we surely anticipate the expectations of what our God will do in the future. We miss Zach terribly, and yes, we shed tears now and then. But we know that in the end, we will see each other again. I thank you, Scott, for picking those songs. I think it fits really well with Jonah and what we're covering today. And sometimes you sit back and you're like, oh, God better work extra. How is it going to get, how can you stay with that or keep the Spirit flowing? And so hopefully that'll happen. So we're going to talk about Jonah today. There's another great story that are told. We talked about Noah and Moses and Daniel. Jonah and say, Jonah, talk to your God. And he goes, well, it's me. Throw me overboard. Everything will be okay. I'm paraphrasing. You should go read the exact words. And so they throw him overboard. Sea calms, and God provides a huge fish to come up and swallow Jonah. Now, I don't know, how many of you like to swim? Okay, I don't. I like to float in style. So that's what I don't like the ocean. I get weirded out about sharks and jellyfish and not surviving. And I've done a few baptisms in the ocean. And when you like try to baptize someone and then they're gone, and you look up and they're up on the beach and then they're like behind you and you're like, I don't know what to do. The sand's up to my knee. I can't move. I could drown. It kind of scares you. So I think of back when I was young, we went to this lake called Drina Lake. And if I was to get thrown overboard in the middle of that lake, I could not make it to the shore. It was that far away. So if you think of where, you can see the ocean there, about when Jonah he knew he probably wouldn't survive. He probably knew, well, I disobeyed God, I'm getting punished. I'm going to get, I'm done for. So he gets thrown over and he gets swallowed by a fish. In chapter 2 is his prayer kind of understanding. Now, you can live in a fish for 3 days. Scientists did it and they said, yeah, you could. It's not going to be uncomfortable. Nope, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going, yeah, it'll be uncomfortable, yeah. But when I go back to that picture of like that cartoony whale, I think sometimes we see where he's in the whale and he's got like a table set up and he's cooking food, eating a salmon, he's got a light, and he's just sitting there waiting his 3 days. That's not how it was. That's not what it's like to be inside of something. I think of those people that like to go hiking a lot. They get those like really sub-zero sleeping bags. And they get in and they're all really tight, and the only thing showing is like the little face. I think of like that is what it would be like. It'd be cramped and gross. The smell would be terrible. He wouldn't have eaten or drank anything. Amanda was like, what if he had to use the bathroom? Well, there you go. That's with you too. That's kind of nasty to think about too. But it wasn't pretty. And so in this prayer in chapter 2, you have Jonah acknowledging that he's in a dark place, that he's in a spot that's not good, in the darkness, in the down in the depths, and nothing's going good. And then the other parts that he counteracts that with are how God brought him out of that, how it was because of God those things happened. Because of God, he was able to get out of that dark place. I think some of us can relate to that. We've been in a dark place in our lives, or maybe you're there now, and you're at the bottom and you don't know how to get out. There's a phrase back in my life in, I don't know what year, 2014. Back in the day, is like yesterday till I was born, so it works. Back in the day, I was in California. I was a youth pastor there for 4 years, right out of college. I thought I was a pretty hot commodity when we decided to start looking for another church. I was like, I'm hot stuff. I'm married, got a kid, I've been here for 4 years. People are going to want to hire me. Well, no one did, and we moved in with my in-laws. Now, they have a 3-bedroom house. We took over 1 bedroom. We had the queen bed. We had a toddler bed on one side, a crib on the other, because Colton was born and stuff there. And we were burning through savings from the house because of insurance stuff and the fact we had a kid and we had to buy a new car and all this other stuff. Everything was in storage. Winter hit, and I was like, I got flip-flops. Don't know where my winter boots are. Well, storage, here I come. And we go through and we rip through our storage unit 5 or 6 times. And by that, I mean, I went down there and went through stuff. And I remember thinking, why are all these people passing on me for interviews? Why am I not getting a job in a church? What is wrong with me? And I remember thinking and doubting my call to ministry, thinking, I'm not good for this. I don't have the right personality. I don't have the right attitude. I'm just going to go do a job at Best Buy so I can get a discount on big TVs and Xboxes. That's what I'm going to do. And I remember thinking this, and I went through the interview process with this church, and we met, and it was 45 minutes down the road. It was close to family. I'm like, this is going to be perfect. I'm great for this job. We fit together. We met at Flying M. The guy says, hey, we're going in a different direction. And I remember pulling up to the park, seeing my wife and kids playing with her parents and going, oh, I failed again. Here I am living with my in-laws, a married guy. I should be taking care of my family, not dealing with living in my in-laws' house, not having a job. I think I'm going to leave ministry. I think I'm going to do it. I had a good 4-year run. Well, my brother in that day felt like working out, so I was doing CrossFit with him. That was a mistake. And so I came home one time, and I remember falling down when I got home after we got back from CrossFit and all this stuff, and just going, God, what's wrong? I'm tired of this. I'm sick of it. And then I remember God saying, well, it could be worse. I could not be here for you. And I go, oh, that's true. It could be worse. So as a married individual, that was the time in my life where I was at the lowest because I wasn't taking care of my family. I wasn't providing for them. I wasn't doing anything. And I remember venting all this to Amanda, and she goes, oh, I'm sorry you have to wake up every morning with your 2 sons and feed them and dress them and play with them and take naps with them and see them grow and walk and talk, and you don't have responsibilities. Because the church I was at, I really wasn't afforded the ability to be there to see Carson do a lot of that stuff. And she's like, sorry that we're living in a house rent-free with my parents. They gave us a fridge in the middle of their living room. And I remember thinking, like, there's a lot of things to look up. There's a lot of things that came from that. And so it could be worse. Because without God, that's the worst. God is always there, so you can always say it could get worse because God could not be there. And Jonah experienced that. Jonah had the time in a fish, down 3 days, close to death, praying to God, and God said, it could be worse. You could not have me. So the fish, whale, see, I do it too, vomited him up. It wasn't, I think sometimes we get the image of like the whale opening his mouth and the tongue rolling out like a red carpet and him walking out going, Nineveh, here I come. Nope, it says it vomited him up. When you think of the word vomit, that's not a good word. You all have images of what that means. Rejecting something in your body that is making you sick, something that is gross and you don't want anymore. That's what happened with the fish. So in chapter 3, we get into his next direction, his next calling. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, go to the city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Jonah began by going a day's journey into the city, proclaiming, 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. The Ninevites believed God, a fast was proclaimed, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. When Jonah's warning reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from the throne, took off his royal robes, covered him with sackcloth, and sat down in the dust. So it reached the people. Jonah went there like God had instructed him to. And he preached, and they received it. Now, we understand if you go back and read Nahum that it was wicked, God was ready just to wipe it all out. But he sent Jonah to talk with them that if they heard Jonah and they received Jonah and they repented, then God would save them. Now, I think one of the reasons Jonah didn't go the first time is because he knew that about God. We understand God if we look at Jonah, the reasons why he didn't go. He didn't go because he didn't want God to save those people, and he knew that if he was, God would save them. I don't know if you have anyone like that in your life where you know if you preach the gospel to them, they would receive it, and you'd be like, oh, great, now they're going to be in heaven. Fantastic. I'm sure you haven't had that thought. I know that sometimes when I have talks about evil and bad things that happen with the teens, I mention they're going to be rapists in heaven. They're going to be repented, forgiven. There's going to be murderers. There's going to be non-Nazarenes there. There's going to be non-white people there. It's going to be every nation and everything. It's going to be a hodgepodge of who knows what. And it's glorious. And it's wonderful. And to hold, because of someone's actions, to hold the good news of God from them is a disservice to who God is. Because God has forgiven us. In some of the songs we sing, how he loves us. He loves us so much that he's willing to forgive the sins and the wickedness that we've committed in our lives and say, I love you. Welcome to the family. And now, every time I hear a story of someone who has come from a situation I know nothing about, and they're like, I believe in Jesus and he saved me, I'm like, woohoo! I might not audibly say that, but inside I'm jumping for joy because the kingdom of heaven grew one more important person. And Jonah went and did this, and even the king was like, well, we got to change stuff up. We got to do fasting. We got to do this. God is the real deal. Now, that would be a really good story if it stopped there. A wicked city of Nineveh that's not good and horrible. Someone comes in with the good news. Everyone gets saved. Good story. Let's go home. Well, then there's chapter 4 of Jonah, and that's not Jonah's response. Jonah is angry, and he's mad that God saved these people. I don't know about you, but at the time, before God gave me a spiritual slap in the face, would have had that instance where I would have judged someone based upon what they did, the crimes they committed, and go, I don't want them in my family. I don't want them in heaven with me. Look what they did. So I can understand a little bit of what Jonah was. Thankfully, God has delivered me from that line of thinking, and I don't think that way anymore, and it's wonderful when I look back and go, oh my goodness, how could I have thought that as a Christian? That's ridiculous. But I had that, and he was angry with God because God saved those people that were wicked, and they repented, and he was like, angry. I'd rather be dead. And I mean, there's people I don't like. I don't like everybody. There's some people I don't genuinely get along with that I've had in my life, and I go, it's better for us if we just don't talk. Because if we talk, I'm going to be super negative, and it's better I just love you from afar and hope that your life is good and you stay with Jesus. But I don't need to be a part of it because we don't click and we don't mesh. I've never said I wish I was dead instead of having them be in my church or in my family. That's a far way to go. So God uses the example of a leaf that Jonah's outside and he's bickering, complaining. He has this plant grow up and shade Noah, and no one appreciates it. Falls asleep. Jesus is there, but later, has a worm come up and eat the plant. Jonah wakes up and he's angry and he's mad. And God goes, why are you mad? You did nothing to that plant. It grew, it was there, you enjoyed it, you didn't do anything to it. And then he uses that to talk about the people. When I read it, I was like, okay, I'm trying to get this. And what was Jonah's, I almost said Noah, that's a different story. What was Jonah's investment into the people of Nineveh prior to going there? Anger, hatred, disgust, didn't want them, wanted to hold God for himself. He didn't really care about the people of Nineveh. So for him, he had no investment into them. God, on the other hand, said, I know them, and they're my people, and I love them, and I care for them. Just like the plant, I helped it grow, I cared for it just like those people. And they don't know that, and they needed to hear it in order to be saved. And I think, how does that get into our lives? How many people are we saying no to because we just don't like them, or they've wronged us, and we don't extend them the same grace and forgiveness that God does. I'd like to think that, Jonah got the picture, he got the message, and that he understood after that point what the key was. And I think that's one thing we can take away from Jonah. I think that's one of several things, but one of them is the fact of God's going to call you into some uncomfortable circumstances in your life. He's going to call you to go into a place that might be dirty. It might be messy. The family dynamic is going to be different than yours. It might speak a different language than you. They might look differently than you. They might have a entirely different makeup, but that's okay because they're a child of God, just like you are a child of God. Jonah had to get over some of his things before he finally said, okay, God, I'll go and I'll do this. He did it. His people became a part of the family, but he was angry because he didn't want to still be associated with them. I've had the wonderful privilege in my life. My dad was a pastor, and I was born on a Wednesday, and I was in church on a Sunday, and the only way you could skip church is if you were throwing up. Is that right? Okay, my mom's here, and so sometimes I forget stuff about my childhood, and I have to call her and make sure and talk with stuff, make sure it's right. But I was in church all the time, so I added it up. I'm 32 years old. I didn't have a chance. I skipped that Wednesday night when I was born. I was born at 6:44, and church started at 6. So I missed that one. But I've had 95 opportunities to be in church throughout my life. That's not including mission trips, camps, conferences, or the 9.5 years I spent going to school to study the Bible and having the conversations. You add all that in there, 6,000 days. That sounds good, sure, why not? Not everyone's afforded that privilege of having their dad as a pastor and always being in a church. Some people come to Jesus later on in life, and it's just as wonderful as me, who's been in church since, 4 days old. God still gets the smile on his face, and he still enjoys when people come. I accepted Jesus when I was 6. How long ago was that? 32 minus 6, what? 26? Right? 26. I got a D+ in math, so it's fine. Yeah. When you don't use it, I retired from math in 2004, so it's a good year. But 26 years I've had Christ in my heart, trying to guide me and direct me with what I was doing. I have failed through those journeys. I've done some stuff that God is just like, for real? You need another slap, don't you? That I've had to correct, and I've had to move, and stuff I've had to overcome, and addiction things and thoughts and everything like that. So when I encounter someone who hasn't afforded that, I go, it must be hard for someone who, I was afforded the opportunity to be in church. Parents that grew me up in church and always went and gave me every opportunity to go to any camps and church function. It must be hard if you've never had that to make the decision to give your life fully to God. And I think that's something that Jonah might have missed. I think Jonah might have missed that what they had just overcome with all their wickedness and the different thing that they had going on. Jonah missed the redemptive power and grace that God shown his creation, showed his people, showed the people that he loved. So if you take anything away from Jonah and you think about it and you go read it this week and you read it and you get the image, be mindful of how you read it and the people in your life that are like the Nineveh to Jonah. Those that you think they're lost, they're a lost cause, because they're not. You have people you encounter on a daily basis. If it's a family member, if it's a coworker, if you're driving down the street and you see someone walk into their car or shopping, or you hear words out of their mouth, or you see something on the internet, those people deserve the good news of God and the redeeming grace. And it's hard. it's not easy to have that thought process towards people because of what they might have done to us, or what they might have said. I've been a part of a few churches, and the circumstances of me leaving haven't always been the best. But I'm in a small Nazarene little world where you find three people and you know someone and you're related to someone, or you know someone. I was at camp. Some guy comes up to me and goes, "Hey, you look like Daryl Johnson." I'm like, "Yeah, he's my dad." He goes, "Oh, I knew your grandparents." The dude was from Indiana. And we meet at camp, and he talks to me for half an hour about stuff in my family I had no idea. So you meet people. I know my feelings and the inside scoop I've had of the churches I've left, and of having to get over some things that they've said about me, that they've hurt my image, they've hurt my ministry. This is how I've perceived it. I've had to get over that because I couldn't dwell on it, because then I'm going to think very negatively about them, their church, and life, and it's just, that's not good for me as a pastor to dwell on these negative thoughts towards another pastor. So I highly encourage you, as you go about today and you go about your week, to think about how you can show people in your life the grace and mercy and forgiveness that God showed the people of Nineveh. Because they need it, and you want to get as many people to God, they get saved, because then heaven's going to be a bigger party. We want a lot of people up there that look all kinds of whatever. Might not be like you, but that's okay. Well, we're going to pray. So please bow your heads with me. God, we thank you. We thank you for the story of Jonah. We thank you for being able to look at it and see his interaction with the people of Nineveh, the differences he had, the difference of lifestyle, the difference of hurt, the different things that they did. And although he tried to run away and he tried to make his own path, he had to come back to you. He had to come back to you, and you saved him and pulled him out of that dark spot. We ask that you be with us today as a church and a congregation of thinking about those in our lives that we have that with, that might not be to the extent that Jonah had, but it's people that we have a negative thought towards or a negative feeling towards. We ask that you help us understand that they are a child of you, that they are a member of your family, and we need to be the light of your good news into their life, the gospel into their life, that we can try to be a little instrument in your big family and grow the kingdom of God with the people we introduce to you. We ask that you be with Nancy in her recovery with the wrist surgery and the hip surgery and all the activeness that she had in her life and all the people she had over and picked up, and just how much she was going everywhere, and that for the next few weeks that's going to slow down a little bit. We ask that you be with her in the healing process and both the surgeries and the pain and everything else. We just ask that you put your hands on her body, that you heal her. Her attitude is very chipper and good and making jokes and understanding it, but we just ask that you come alongside her and those that will try to fill in when they can for the impact she has, and